me a brief overview of the quarterly, and how does it compare to the previous report? I mean, were its findings in line with expectations?
Hi Simone, and thanks for your time. Yes, I think what we do normally is see how quarter one turns out, and that certainly shapes our view for the rest of 2021. And what quarter one showed was that there was significantly strong recovery, firstly in the global economy, and that spilled over into all economic activity. All industrial metals certainly have moved up significantly in price. Platinum has lagged that and perhaps not receiving that full recognition as an industrial metal. What we saw in the quarter is that we had strong recovery in industrial, jewelry and automotive. And investment stayed strong, obviously not as strong as the fantastic quarter that we had a year ago. So what that's done is it's given us a view for 2021, and supply has come back pretty strongly. It's up 16%, but it's still not up at the levels of 2019. It's still appreciably below 2019 levels. And then demand is up by 5% because of those strong recoveries, particularly with automotive. Automotive manufacturing is expected to be up by about 16% this year, but automotive platinum demand, in contrast, is up by 24%, and that's mainly because of the increased metal loading per vehicle, because of tightening emissions regulations, and certainly some substitution of platinum for palladium in gasoline autocatalysts. So a fairly strong quarter, and the effect of all of that is that our forecast for the deficit for 2021 has now gone from what we said previously was a 60,000 ounce deficit. That moves up to a deficit of 158,000 ounces for 2021.
I'm actually glad that you mentioned the revision to your forecast for 2021. Could you just give me a little bit more insight to me on what exactly prompted this revision and how the global economy's recovery influenced it? I mean, what does this mean for the rest of the year? What can we expect?
So I suppose two main themes. Firstly, just general, I suppose they're once in a lifetime fiscal stimulus programs that have been put in by multiple governments to try and sort of dig economies out of the hole caused by the COVID pandemic. So there's significant spending that's reaching into all areas really. So that's been a big driver. We've seen glass demand, for example, for platinum use go up incredibly. It'll be expected to be up 70% this year. And that's mainly as the demand for flat screens has increased significantly. And also part of decarbonisation is to use less energy and insulate buildings better. So there's a lot of glass fibre that's going into building insulation, and there's been significant increases in the capacity for glass and glass fibre production, particularly in China. So you'll see we've had a 70% year-on-year increase in glass manufacture, and that can also be purely because of installation does take a lot of metal, whereas the annual top-up is a little bit less. But in general, glass has gone up significantly over the last few years. So that increase definitely is a sort of a straight industrial impact. And then secondly, we've had a lot of change in personal income, people wanting to drive vehicles because of concerns about infection rather than using public transport. There was also quite a long delay in fleet replacements during 2020. And now you've got fleets that are older, anecdotal stories of people renting vehicles with 60 or 70,000 miles on them, which is quite unusual. So even the rental company fleets are a bit older than they were. And then to compound that, there's been a shortage of microchips. So that 16% increase in vehicle production is despite the fact that there has been microchip shortages. So I think that's where the spillover certainly is happening. And then the other big theme is that the certainty about the hydrogen economy, I think decarbonisation is certainly way more certain than it was perhaps 2 years ago. I think, we had the Australian fires that certainly alerted us to climate change, but I think people have evaluated sustainability during this past very difficult year. And the commitment to decarbonisation seems to be very high. So platinum's role in the green hydrogen economy, both in producing green hydrogen and in the fuel cell vehicles, means that a lot more people are looking at platinum as an investment asset. And certainly the investment interest and increase in ETF holdings has been quite significant this year.
Great, thank you. I'm actually glad that you mentioned sustainability and decarbonization. I mean, we know that the hydrogen economy, or increased focus on platinum and the hydrogen economy, it does have an impact on the demand for autos. So I don't know if you would maybe just like to elaborate a bit for us and just give us a bit more insight as to why exactly this is influencing it to such an extent despite supply chain curtailments.
Yeah, interestingly, Simone, I think the unusual part is that when new investors particularly, and we've spent the last 6 years trying to get more fund managers around the world and more people in the retail market to consider platinum as an investment, and a lot of them are now aware of platinum's strategic role in the hydrogen economy, and that's in the electrolysis of water to produce hydrogen. That's basically a fuel cell in reverse that converts water into hydrogen. And if that's done using solar or wind, then that is green. If you use renewable power, then it's totally fossil-free. And the fuel cell vehicle uses platinum in the fuel cell to drive the vehicle. And the platinum-based fuel cell is the one that is small enough to be used in vehicles. So you've got this significantly strategic importance. However, their volumes are quite small in the early years. So right now, there is a lot of green hydrogen being produced using platinum electrolyzers, but the total demand amount is, perhaps a few 100,000 ounces over 10 years. So that's not too significant. The big prize really is sort of 10 years out. You're probably looking at perhaps 2 to 4 million ounces of platinum being used on fuel cell vehicles. So that's certainly a very long-term and very positive development for South Africa particularly, because for South Africa to increase its mining output to meet that extra demand would be very good for the country. In the interim, probably the most influential part of fuel cell demand is in heavy-duty trucks. Class 8 trucks, you can make them using fuel cells, and they're in sort of testing ports and fleets and large cities for city fleets. So maybe a few 100,000 ounces of demand over the next few years from heavy-duty is mildly interesting. The real change is that most people, and particularly new investors, that hear about platinum's involvement in the hydrogen economy, then come and look at platinum. And what they see when they look at platinum is that supply is very constrained. It's probably flat for the next 3 to 4 years. And demand growth is particularly high, particularly from substitution of platinum for palladium and gasoline catalysts. So you've got this massive demand growth and no supply growth. So the real impact of the hydrogen economy on platinum in the short term is that it's driving strong investment demand. And we've seen record investment demand for the last 2 years and strong flows at the moment. So it really is a sort of a secondary effect, but still a very important way to get people to understand the importance of platinum as an investment.
You briefly touched on it now in terms of the investment prospects for platinum. And I mean, we know investors are increasingly looking at the commodity, but how does those investment prospects look like compared to other metals like, say, gold or even palladium?
I suppose firstly, compared to all metals and thinking of gold as a precious metal, certainly there was a lot of interest in gold and its price moved significantly during the pandemic, as one would expect as global risk went up. What we did see is as soon as the vaccination programs became a reality, the gold price came off. So gold tends to react to risk and continues to do that, and we're certainly not out of the woods. So a lot of people that had looked at gold, in fact when it got to $2,000 an ounce, there were many gold investors that switched out of gold into platinum because it certainly was lagging. And platinum for the last 50 years, Simone, has probably traded at a premium to gold for 44 of those years, and often at a significant premium. So it's fairly, it feels right that platinum is just as precious, but certainly does a lot of good things in industry, so should be at a premium. So if anything, there's no reason why platinum shouldn't move back to a premium to gold. In terms of the other metals, we've seen tin, aluminium, nickel, and particularly copper have enormous surges as the economic recovery has occurred post-COVID. These fiscal stimulus, as I mentioned earlier, are being pumped into these economies, and that's certainly causing a huge increase in demand for those metals, and particularly copper. And we've seen those price rises, but there still hasn't been that knock-on effect to platinum as an industrial metal, but it certainly is playing catch-up. So it's really a good supportive driver to keep upward pressure on platinum price. And the second metal you mentioned is really key, and that is palladium. We know that platinum and palladium can be substituted in gasoline catalysts at a ratio of 1:1. And what you've got now is you've got palladium nearly $3,000 an ounce, and platinum sitting at 12 to 1,300. So that substitution has started to come. The details are coming out slowly. There's fairly good agreement that it will be an additional 1.5 million ounces of platinum demand per annum within 4 years. So I think that growth is enormous, and certainly it says that the disconnect in those two prices is causing that substitution. The other thing it means is that there's no real reason that platinum shouldn't be sitting at around about the same price as palladium, because the main reason for the palladium price being as high as it is China's implementing China 6. China's passenger vehicles are almost exclusively gasoline, and they don't have forward books like the West do, so they're buying in the spot market. So it really is the Chinese automaker buying that is keeping the palladium price hugely escalated. So from a price perspective, there's no reason why platinum shouldn't move towards firstly gold and past gold, and certainly towards palladium as these metal prices adjust, as we've seen them do so over the last 20 years.